She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but when her baby's cries filled the silence, she whispered, "I'll find a way." She didn't know that way would arrive through a wrong number and a stranger's heart. Before we begin this story, take a deep breath with me. And if you still believe that kindness can show up when you least expect it, that even strangers can be heaven's answer, subscribe and tell us in the comments. Do you believe in divine timing or simple coincidence? Because sometimes the text you send by mistake becomes the miracle you've been praying for. It was a cold January night in the city. The kind of night when the world feels too big and too quiet all at once. In a small apartment on the 4th floor of an old building, Veronica stood in her kitchen, her back pressed against a faded wall. The bulb above her flickered once, then went dark completely. She didn't even flinch. The electricity had been off for 3 days. The fridge behind her was silent, not broken, just lifeless. A piece of paper was taped to it in her handwriting. "Help will come." She'd written it to keep herself from falling apart. Her 1-year-old daughter, Maria, sat cross-legged on the cracked linoleum floor, rubbing her eyes, murmuring, "Mommy, I'm hungry." Veronica swallowed hard. She bent down, brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead, and forced a smile. "I know, baby. I know." Her 6-month-old, Grace, whimpered from her arms, too small to understand hunger but old enough to feel it. The empty formula can on the table stared back at her like a cruel joke. She wrapped Grace tighter in the pink blanket her neighbor had given her when she was born. Her own stomach cramped, but she ignored it. She hadn't eaten since yesterday morning, saving the last piece of bread for Maria. Outside, wind whistled through the window's thin cracks. The heater was silent. The air smelled like metal, dust, and cold. Veronica sat down slowly, rocking her baby. In the corner, Maria started to cry, not loudly, but the kind of tired sob that only children make when hunger has outlasted their tears. And in that moment, something inside Veronica broke just enough for her pride to slip away. She picked up her cracked phone, its battery on 7%, and scrolled through her contacts. There weren't many. Her mother was gone. Her sister hadn't called in years. The few names left on her list were people she'd worked with, people who had their own lives, their own bills, their own problems. But then she stopped at one name. Thomas. Her old supervisor from the hospital cleaning job she had before Grace was born. He'd always been kind. Once, he'd given her a ride home during a snowstorm. Her hands trembled as she typed. "Hi Thomas, I'm sorry to bother you. This is Veronica from hospital cleaning. I'm in a terrible spot. My electricity is off, and I have no formula for my baby. I get paid tomorrow, but I need $75 to get through tonight. I promise I'll pay you back Friday. I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate." She stared at the message for a long moment. It hurt to send it. She felt her pride crumble with every word. But she pressed send. And waited. Minutes passed. The only sound was the rhythmic creak of her rocking chair and her baby's tiny hiccups. Then, ding. Her phone buzzed. Veronica opened it quickly. And her heart sank. "I think you have the wrong number. There's no Thomas here." Her chest tightened. "Of course," she whispered. Because when things were already falling apart, even a small mistake felt like the end. She typed quickly. "I'm so sorry to bother you. Wrong number. And that was it. She turned the phone face down on the counter, picked up Grace, and started pacing the small room. Her daughter's cries grew louder, raw and pleading. Veronica pressed her forehead to the baby's soft hair and whispered through her tears. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." But her voice cracked. Desperation doesn't always look like screaming or breaking things. Sometimes it looks like a mother whispering to a child who can't yet understand hunger, and praying that the next breath doesn't taste like hopelessness. Her phone buzzed again. Once. Twice. She ignored it. Probably a spam message, she thought. But when it buzzed a third time, she picked it up, if only to turn it off. A new message blinked on the cracked screen. "Are you and your baby safe?" She frowned. Her fingers hesitated. She typed, "Yes. Just hungry and cold." Almost instantly, another message appeared. "What kind of formula do you use? What's your address?" Her heart began to pound. A stranger asking for her address, it sounded dangerous. She typed, "Why do you want to know?" "Because I want to help. I can send formula and pay your electric bill. No strings attached." Veronica stared at the screen. No one does that, she thought. No one helps without a reason. Who is this? Someone who can help. My name is Johnson. I promise I'm not a creep. I just want your baby to have food tonight. When Grace shows up in your life, it never announces itself as Grace. It just whispers through a stranger's words and waits for you to trust. Veronica's hands shook. She looked around her apartment. What could she even lose? There was nothing to steal, nothing to take. And her children needed to eat. She typed back her address, hesitated, then added the name of the formula brand. Her thumb hovered over send. "God, if this is a mistake, please forgive me," she whispered. And she pressed send. 5 minutes later, her phone buzzed again. "Formula, diapers, baby wipes, and groceries will be there in 1 hour. Your electric bill has been paid. It should be restored soon." Veronica froze. That couldn't be real. Then, the faintest click. The hum of the refrigerator returning to life. The light over the stove flickered on. "Mommy!" Maria squealed. "The lights are back." Veronica fell to her knees, clutching both girls to her chest. Tears poured freely now, but they weren't the same tears that had fallen an hour ago. These ones tasted like relief. It wasn't just the electricity that came back on. It was her faith. Her hope. The light inside her that had almost gone out. An hour later, there was a knock on the door. A grocery delivery. 3 large paper bags filled with food, formula, baby wipes, and diapers. Veronica thanked the delivery man through tears, closing the door softly behind her. When she turned around, the glow from the kitchen light washed over everything. Her daughters, the table, even that old note on the fridge. Help will come. And somehow it had. Her phone buzzed again. "Is everything okay now?" She typed back slowly, her fingers trembling. "Yes. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you." The reply came almost immediately. "You don't owe me anything. Just take care of your little ones. That's all the thanks I need." She stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then she whispered softly, "Thank you, Johnson. Whoever you are." That night, Veronica fed Grace with a full bottle. Maria fell asleep with a full belly and a warm blanket. And for the first time in weeks, Veronica didn't cry herself to sleep. She didn't know it yet. But the text she'd meant for Thomas, the one she thought was a mistake, was about to change the direction of her life forever. Sometimes the miracle doesn't come from heaven. Sometimes it comes through a phone signal, through a stranger's kindness, through a message sent to the wrong person. That turned out to be exactly the right one. He spent his life solving problems with money, but that night, one woman's hunger reminded him of everything money couldn't fix. Before we continue this story, take a moment to subscribe and tell us in the comments. Have you ever helped someone you didn't know and realized it helped you more? Because sometimes, kindness isn't charity. It's the soul's quiet way of remembering what truly matters. Across the city, the glow of glass towers shimmered like constellations trapped on Earth. In one of those towers, Johnson Parker stood in his office, the kind of space that made silence feel expensive. "Good morning. I can't thank you enough for what you did last night. You saved us. I get paid today and want to arrange to pay you back. Maybe not all at once, but I'll try." He smiled faintly. That kind of integrity, even in poverty, was rare. "Please don't worry about paying me back," he typed. "Consider it a gift. Just take care of your little ones." But she resisted again. "It doesn't feel right," she wrote. "You don't even know me." He looked at the message for a long moment before replying. "Maybe not yet. But I'd like to." It wasn't romance. It wasn't charity. It was the quiet recognition between two people who had both lost something. Her security, his purpose. Over the next few days, their texts became longer. At first, about practical things, groceries, power bills, baby needs. Then slowly, the tone changed. He learned she worked nights cleaning at the hospital. She learned he ran a company but never said which one. He said he didn't like talking about work, he liked talking about life. They spoke about small things, favorite foods, music, childhood memories. She told him about her daughters. He told her about his mother, who used to pray for strangers she'd never met. And one night, out of nowhere, she texted, "Why are you being so kind to me?" He stared at the question for a long time before replying. "Because I can. And because you remind me of what my mother used to say. Never ignore the cry of a hungry child. You might be answering someone's prayer." That night, Veronica cried quietly, not from sadness, but from being seen. You never know which of your words will become someone's lifeline, or which of your small actions will ripple into their courage to keep going. Weeks passed. The city's chill softened into February light. Veronica had managed to catch up on her bills. Her daughters were healthy. Life was still hard, but now, not hopeless. One morning, she woke to another message. "Would you meet me for coffee tomorrow? I'd like to finally put a face to the name that's been on my mind for weeks. We can meet in public, somewhere you're comfortable. No pressure." She stared at it for a long time. Her heart raced. "Why?" she typed. "Why do you want to meet me?" "Because I want to understand what you've taught me without saying it," he replied. That kindness doesn't have to be earned. She read the message 3 times, then glanced at her 2 girls. Maria was trying to feed her baby sister a piece of cracker, giggling softly. The sight made her smile. She took a deep breath. There's a small cafe on 5th Street called Morning Brew. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. I'll be there with my girls. And so it began, the crossing of 2 worlds. A billionaire who had forgotten what purpose felt like. And a mother who had forgotten what hope felt like. That night, neither of them slept much. Johnson, staring out the window of his penthouse, replayed her words over and over. Veronica, sitting by her daughter's crib, ironed her one clean sweater, wondering what she'd say. 2 people, miles apart in circumstance, yet both awake under the same city sky. Thinking of a meeting that neither could explain. And both secretly needed. They say life changes in a moment. For Veronica and Johnson, that moment began not with lightning or fate, but with a wrong number, a message, and a choice to care. Some people walk into your life like storms, loud, sudden, unforgettable. But the ones who truly change you, they arrive like quiet sunlight after a long night. Before we begin this final part, take a moment to subscribe. And tell us in the comments. Do you believe that one small act of kindness can rewrite someone's entire story? Because today, we witness what happens when grace meets gratitude. Morning broke soft and gold over the city. The streets buzzed with quiet energy, cars passing, bakeries opening, lives beginning. At a small corner cafe called Morning Brew, a woman sat near the window. Her baby on her lap, her older daughter beside her sipping warm milk. Veronica kept glancing at the door, every sound making her heart skip. She wasn't sure why she had agreed to this. Maybe it was gratitude. Maybe curiosity. Maybe a need to finally see the face behind the kindness that had changed everything. She had told herself not to expect anything. Not pity, not help, not even friendship. Just closure. A thank you, face to face. She wore her cleanest sweater. Not perfect, but it smelled of soap and effort. And sometimes, effort is its own kind of beauty. At 8:59 a.m., the cafe door opened. A tall man stepped inside, neatly dressed, but not flashy. He had the look of someone used to being noticed, and yet tired of it. Veronica's breath caught. He looked around once, then his eyes found hers. No words at first. Just that quiet recognition, the moment 2 people realize they've already shared something sacred, even without meeting. He approached the table slowly. "You must be Veronica," he said, his voice calm, warm. "And these must be the little angels I've been hearing about." Veronica smiled shyly. "Yes. This is Maria, and this little one is Grace." Maria, curious and fearless, looked up at him and asked, "Are you the man from Mommy's phone?" He chuckled softly. "I guess I am." There are moments in life when conversation feels unnecessary. When gratitude speaks louder than any words. They talked for hours. At first, about ordinary things, how old the girls were, how work was going, the weather. But slowly, the conversation deepened. She told him about her life before the struggles. How she once dreamed of being a nurse. How she'd lost her job during the pandemic. How one missed paycheck became a mountain she couldn't climb. He listened, not like a rich man listening to a poor woman, but like a soul listening to another soul who had carried pain too long. He told her about his world. How success had become routine. How he'd forgotten the sound of sincerity. How her message, that night, had made him feel something he hadn't in years, useful. For the first time, both of them understood something about grace. It doesn't just save the receiver. It saves the giver too. Maria giggled as Johnson showed her how to make shapes with foam from his cappuccino. Grace clapped her little hands at every new sound. Veronica sat back and watched. There was something healing in seeing laughter return to her children's faces. She whispered softly, half to herself, "I wish my mother could see this moment." Johnson looked at her. What would she say? Veronica smiled faintly. She'd say, "Told you, girl, God doesn't forget his children." He nodded, eyes misty. Mine used to say something similar. For a moment, silence hung between them. Not awkward, but full of shared reverence. As the morning light shifted, Johnson glanced at his watch. "I should go," he said quietly. "But before I do." He reached into his coat pocket and slid an envelope across the table. Veronica frowned. "What's this?" "Just something to help until you're back on your feet. No conditions. No repayment." She shook her head immediately. "No, please. You've done enough already." He smiled, the kind of smile that came from understanding, not superiority. "Then think of it as me investing in a mother who hasn't given up." Her eyes glistened. "You really don't have to." "I know," he interrupted gently. "But I want to. Sometimes, the hardest thing to do is accept help. Because it reminds us of how human we are. How much we still need one another." Veronica finally nodded. She tucked the envelope into her bag, not because she wanted the money, but because she didn't want to reject the love behind it. Before he left, he crouched to Maria's level and said softly, "Be good to your mom, okay? She's stronger than she knows." Maria grinned. "I know. Mommy's a superhero." He laughed quietly, eyes shining. Then he straightened, looked at Veronica once more, and said, "Thank you for trusting a stranger." She replied, "Thank you for not being one." And just like that, he was gone. No dramatic goodbye. No promises of forever. Just two people whose lives had touched. Enough to leave a mark that would never fade. Days passed. Then weeks. Veronica found a better job at a small clinic nearby. Her apartment grew brighter, not because she had more things, but because she had more peace. Every now and then, a message would arrive from Johnson. Sometimes just, "Hope the girls are doing well." Other times, "You reminded me to slow down." "Thank you." Their conversations became rarer, but deeper. There was no need for constant contact, just quiet respect and gratitude that never expired. One evening, as the sun set through the window, Maria found the old note still taped to the fridge. "Help will come." She looked up at her mother and said, "Mommy, did the help come?" Veronica smiled softly, brushing her daughter's cheek. "Yes, baby," she whispered. "But not just the help. The reminder that we're never really forgotten. And maybe